last video talking about Gypsyrose, we were discussing this interview that this blogger that Gypsy was suing had done with Tasha K. And this blogger, her name is Fancy, and it has a YouTube channel called the Good Wives Network. She corresponded with Gypsy for over 7+ years while she was in prison. And we're talking about this interview she did with Tasha K. And we just talked about the clip where she said that Gypsy had threatened her life and said, oh, the last person who got in my way, they're no longer here, referencing her mother. And I had asked you guys if you guys wanted to see me recap the full interview, and I got plenty of people saying they were interested. Fancy ended up uploading the full live to her YouTube channel, so I was able to watch it without paying $12 through Tasha K's site, which that was nice. So let's go ahead and get into what all Fancy had to say, starting off with a lawsuit. As we all know, and we touched on time and time again, Gypsy decided to sue Fancy after Fancy promised, oh, give me your medical records, give me your life story, sign this contract. I'm going to help you, make you a lot of money. I'm going to come out with documentaries, I'm going to come out with books, all kinds of stuff. After Fancy dug deeper, she no longer trusted Gypsy, and she started writing blogs calling Gypsy a liar and feeling like she was a fraudster just as much as her mother, and thinks a lot of other stuff we'll get into in a second. But she pretty much wrote all these articles, and since she got mad at Gypsy, she did not pay Gypsy like she promised. She didn't end up making any documentaries. She is coming out with a book later on, but it's just where her and whoever helped her with that book is going to make money. I don't think any money is going to be going to Gypsy. And Gypsy was like, look, I got screwed out of my contract. I did my part, you're not doing your part. And she decided to sue her for unjust enrichment, defamation, breach of contract, and fraud. And Fancy went to court, and this is what happened. So she said she didn't even know she had to go to court. She's actually watching another YouTuber's channel that was talking about the lawsuit, saying, oh yeah, Gypsy's suing Fancy and they have court tomorrow. And Fancy was like, oh my god, I haven't been served. I have no idea about this court case. And she jumped in her car, drove all night long to come to Missouri, and she pulled up 3 hours before court was supposed to start. At that point, she was exhausted and very nervous because she didn't know which way the judge was going to go with this case. And then she walked into the courtroom and she sat down, and the judge was like, hello, nice to meet you. And she said, yeah, I just found out about this court hearing yesterday. I didn't get served or anything. The judge explained to Fancy, well, technically, you didn't get served because you didn't even have to be here. We were just getting together to see if we were going to move forward with this restraining order, because Gypsy was trying to get a restraining order in an attempt to silence Fancy. And he said that we are also going to see if we're going to move forward with this case. And then he called up Gypsy's lawyer, and the judge looked Gypsy's lawyer in the eyes, and he said, okay, can you tell me why you're here? And Gypsy's lawyer starts explaining like everything I just explained to you guys about why Gypsy decided to file these lawsuits. And the judge cut him off, and he said, okay, but why are you in my courtroom? And the lawyer's like, yeah, because they signed a contract and she didn't follow through. She made all this defaming post. And the judge looked like he was getting more annoyed by the minute, and he cut Gypsy's lawyer off again and said, okay, but why is that my problem? And the lawyer just got quiet for a second. I don't think he was expecting to hear that. And the judge explained, okay, so why would you file in Missouri? Is the plaintiff from Missouri? The lawyer said no. Is the defendant from Missouri? The lawyer said no. So the judge said, so why would you file this in Missouri? And the lawyer explained, well, you know, when the crimes happen, Gypsy was in the Chillicothe Correctional Facility in Missouri, so that's why we decided to file in Missouri. And the judge was like, no, 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 neither one of them, the plaintiff or the defendant, is living in Missouri, so it doesn't matter. He explained this case is out of our jurisdiction, so therefore it has no merit. And then the judge said, therefore, the case is dismissed. And I'm sure Gypsy and Chrissy and all them were very upset. Apparently, it's not just Gypsy on the lawsuit. She also has her sister on the lawsuit, Christy, her dad, I guess the whole family, because they're the ones that shared her medical records and information with Fancy too. If Gypsy wants to refile the case, I'm assuming she's either going to have to go to Fancy's state, I'm not sure what state she lives in, or refile it in the state of Louisiana, but she cannot refile in the state of Missouri. So the lawsuit is out the window, at least for now. She can always refile, but Fancy is pretty confident that she's not going to refile again. And it kind of seems like Fancy is starting to slow down talking about Gypsy as much. And she even said in this interview that this is the last time she wants to speak about her. She pretty much wants to close that chapter until her book comes out, which I believe is supposed to come out later this year. And she also said she does not believe that Gypsy is currently pregnant. She has doubts Gypsy's pregnant just because she's lied about being pregnant before in the past. When she was with Nick, there were text messages that were released of conversations they had before they took her mother's life. There was two plans. The first plan was for Gypsy to get pregnant, then she believed she would be able to live with Nick and live happily ever after. Well, they ended up meeting up for the first time at a movie theater when Gypsy and her mom went to go see Cinderella, and she bumped into Nick even though they had it planned, and then she snuck off with him to the men's bathroom, and she wanted him to try to get her pregnant. So a month later, she starts texting Nick and claiming she was pregnant, which is also interesting because she was just doing that in last night's episode of Gypsyrose, Life After Lockup. Ryan claimed a month before she actually found out she was pregnant, she was sending him text messages of pregnancy tests were positive, and she even admitted to a source that she was not pregnant the first time she was sending him pictures of pregnancy tests. I guess she was just trying to do that because she wanted him to get her on adultery so it could move the divorce faster, which was interesting because she was trying to tell him on the show, oh, I don't want you to get me for adultery, but then she decided she wanted him to, which is just crazy. But she lied about her pregnancy to Ryan at first, and then she lied about being pregnant to Nick at first and claimed she was pregnant, and then she suddenly claimed that she had to go to the hospital and get her feeding tube taken out and put back in, and she claimed due to that she miscarried. And they were even like trying to talk about baby names, and Nick was even messaging Gypsy saying, oh, what does my daughter want before I go to hell, because Gypsy claimed that she was pregnant with a little girl. And I think this was false because we've never heard Gypsy talk about this baby anymore outside of these text messages. I feel like she just wanted to enrage Nick and think, oh, you know, it's Gypsy's mom's fault that we lost our baby, which made him consider more than ever taking Gypsy's mom's life, which before then he had admitted multiple times that was something he was not comfortable doing, and even Gypsy had left him at one point over it. I don't know, in my opinion, I don't think that's the case. I think Gypsy's pregnant. We've seen her with a little, I think it's called like a Doppler, those things you put on your stomach while you're pregnant and you can hear the heartbeat. And she did a video and we could hear the heartbeat. It was loud and strong. And I just don't think, I know Gypsy's done a lot of things, but I don't see her announcing she's pregnant, starting a whole baby registry, and dealing with all the drama that came along with that, and having a gender reveal and having a whole pregnancy photo shoot if she wasn't pregnant, you know? And if she was, then I mean, she'd be canceled so fast for lying about something like that. Then Fancy claimed she had some insider knowledge from Hulu and claimed that allegedly the reason why Christy Blanchard and the family and Gypsy weren't a part of the act was because they feared that Gypsy and Christy were going to take over and try to control the narrative. She claimed that time and time again, allegedly she would see these shows and documentaries be in Gypsy and Christy's favor, and Dee Dee's not here to tell her story. Nick's not here to tell, I mean, he's here to tell his story, but last I knew he wasn't willing to speak out about it anymore. Nick was having a hard time telling who was genuine, who was reaching out to him, because so many people were trying to reach out and write to him and come visit him and pretend like they wanted to be friends with him, only to get close with him to just ask him nonstop about Gypsy. And he's tired of talking about it, so he's pretty much said, I don't want to talk about her at all anymore. If you're going to reach out to me just to bring her up, then just forget it. At least last I knew, a few months ago, that's where he was at. I think Nick should be able to write a book. If Gypsy's able to keep releasing book after book, Nick should be able to come out with a book and tell his side too. But anyways, Fancy said that Christy Blanchard was really upset that the act did not have her and Gypsy a part of it. And then she explained that she feels like Gypsy never had Munchausen by proxy, because I don't know if I agree with this or not, but she has went through thousands of pages of Gypsy's medical records and claimed that she has spoken with experts of Munchausen by proxy. And she said that all the things that Gypsy were being treated for were things that were from a result of this chromosome depletion that she had. And I mean, I guess some of that would make sense, but at the same time, how would that explain Gypsy having to walk in a wheelchair? And she even admitted that she could walk, and she knew she could walk, and even a doctor admitted that she had muscles in her legs, which did not make any sense, because people who typically are in a wheelchair and immobile from the waist down typically start to lose muscle in their legs over time. So it's showing that she was using her. I really feel like there's a case to some degree of Munchausen by proxy, and I just wish this was, I mean, this was a good interview, but I just wish that Fancy would have brought the receipts to back up some of the claims, like the receipt of Gypsy threatening her life, and then the receipt where she shows that the wheelchair, the reason why Gypsy was in a wheelchair was due to this chromosome depletion, and that would make me understand things more. Then she explained that she was looking at the medical records, and she noticed that the medical records from Louisiana were completely different from the medical records in Missouri, which made sense because when Gypsy and Dee Dee moved to Missouri after Hurricane Katrina, Dee Dee had claimed that Gypsy's social security card, her ID, her insurance cards, and all her medical records had been swept away by Hurricane Katrina. So she was pretty much able to start off with a clean slate for Gypsy's medical records and pretty much rewrite history however she pleased. I do have to be fair and point out that there were a few people in my comments when I did talk about the clips of Fancy's interview in my last video, and they're like, oh my god, Amber, you don't know about Fancy? She is freaking crazy. Watch out. So I tried to do some digging. I watched a few different videos on her. The only time I've watched her, like I said, is just in this interview because she really got me interested when she claimed Gypsy was threatening her life. And I did go back, and when I was watching these videos, I noticed that she does have a criminal history. She's been arrested 3 times for fraud and 3 times for theft. But she also has a bad habit in the past of kind of blowing up on people. Like if someone says something and they don't agree with her, or somebody trolls her, or she's had a bad habit in the past of just blowing up and becoming way too consumed with the drama, to where there's been people who said they ended up leaving her channel because they felt like she was becoming way too consumed with the drama. I haven't seen that in her recent videos, so I don't know if maybe she's died down a little bit or just the same fancy, but people have definitely pointed that out, and I have seen short clips. And I mean, I don't like how she was also calling Gypsy like a bitch and all these names, because when you start calling people names like that, it starts feeling personal. Like, I understand throwing a little shade here or there, but when you start calling names like that, it kind of starts feeling personal. I have a lot of information on her channel and blog that wasn't out there until she put it out there. And she did talk to Gypsy for 7 years, so she has a lot of details. But like I said, I also feel like she should have still paid Gypsy for her part once she signed that contract. Especially with the fact that a lot of that content she had, she wouldn't even had if Gypsy didn't give it to her, and she got that from 7 years of talking to Gypsy. And I guess when Gypsy signed that contract and agreed to this, she really didn't do her research into fancy like she should have, and she really believed that she had this big network that she claimed. And Gypsy really didn't have much education because she only went to like the 2nd grade, so she really had no idea what she was doing when she signed the contract. But I really don't like the fact that Fancy did not follow her part of the contract with making the documentary and paying Gypsy and doing her part like she promised. Even though Gypsy did lie to her, that's like Lifetime saying, oh yeah, we decided to film a whole season with Gypsy, but you know what, we just don't like her, or she ended up lying to us during one interview, so we're not gonna pay her. Gypsy at least did her part, so I feel like it's only right if Fancy would have followed through with her part. I don't like that. It reminds me of a person in the past that I loaned money to, and they were like, I'll pay you back in a week. A week passed by, still wasn't paid. I waited a whole nother week, didn't hear from them. Finally hit them up, hey, it's been 2 weeks, I gave you double the time, where's my money? They didn't respond. They read my message, they ignored my calls, but you know, they weren't ignoring my messages and calls when they needed that money. And finally another week goes by, they still haven't paid me. Then I finally text them. I'm like, hey, you know, I've reached out a few times, I haven't heard back from you, are you gonna pay me? And then they responded, well, since you want to talk to me like that, no, I'm not gonna pay you at all. When I just asked a question very calmly, and they were just looking for any cop-out excuse to not pay me back. And I think that's why they're intentionally trying to get me to keep texting them, and were ignoring me. And that's kind of how this feels in this situation. I don't like it. Like, it's one thing if she would have just talked to Gypsy as a friend or as a blogger and, you know, was getting all this information. But she was only able to unlock this extra access to Gypsy by coming through with this contract that Gypsy signed that was supposed to be an exclusivity contract, where she was just supposed to work with her and she's gonna make her all this money in documentaries. And I don't know, I just don't like that at all. And you know, like, yes, she really grew her channel and her blog because she had a lot of exclusive tea when it came to Gypsy, and I think that was one of her first like real big stories she had on her social media. But the thing is, like, when you first start off with someone like off a lie like that and like get them in a contract and don't follow through, it kind of puts a stain on your image in the future, where if someone else decides to want to work with you, or you approach someone else like Gypsy and they actually do their research and this is what comes up, it's not going to look good. It's going to make people kind of second guess, oh well, she didn't pay Gypsy, I don't know if I want to waste my time with her. You know, that's just my opinion. This is what Ken had to say about Fancy. He said, I just want to share my opinion on Fancy, so here's the deal. Everything this lady Fancy posts is garbage. First and foremost, she's not a friend of the Blanchard family, and she's not a spokesperson for the Blanchard family. She's not working with the Blanchard family. She has absolutely zero trust and zero cooperation with Gypsy herself. She claims that she has all this concerns for her, all this care for her well-being, just wants the best for her. Yet her actions have spoken nothing but the contrary. Gypsy has asked you many times to leave it alone. She doesn't want it, she wants to let it go. Yet you ignore her and pursue your own selfish path. First of all, the woman has voiced ill opinion towards me, which is understandable since I've been in the way of her project for a while because I keep Gypsy away from it. Because I, unlike you, have nothing but Gypsy's best interest at heart and at first importance. She doesn't want to do another series, and I don't blame her. How can she heal and move on if she's constantly rehashing the same story into the spotlight every 3 months? She gets targeted by other inmates and guards, and her wounds will never heal until she gets some rest from the media. But of course, that means nothing to her when she's trying to build her career from nothing into something. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I just wanted to talk about that interview. Like I said, you can check out the full interview on Fancy's channel at the Good Wise Network. But overall, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.